said they got to wake up with their piss hot. So, you just got to be ready to go. And that's reality. That is the way it is.
Woke up with my piss hot. What a way to start. Sweat on my forehead, racing hard. Woke up with my piss hot. Ready to ignite. Let's raise some hell. Let's own the night.
Daniels, just a rookie. 26 out of 30, 87%, 231 yards. He rushes for 47. He's doing everything. Shredded, baby. CJ Stroud, 345 yards, brings the Texans back, wins it at the buzzer. Shred him, Stroud.
Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee, powered by FLURRY Sports. It can be tough to win a fantasy league on your own, but at FFBC, we will work together to bring home the hardware. Hosted by Zach Bruner and the rest of the FLURRY Sports crew, we will give top-level analysis, answer your questions, and, well, go off on other tangents.
That was after I tried to get ChatGPT to admit that 9/11 was an inside job, but it stood firm. It gave quite a few solid points that it was true.
Welcome to Fantasy Football by Committee. The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee. Sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLURRY, FLURRY, to sign up for Underdog Fantasy, underdogfantasy.com, or just the Underdog Fantasy app, or scan that QR code, get a $1,000 deposit bonus, and we'll give you some picks later that you can lock in and make some money. And before I forget, because I literally just thought about doing this like an hour ago, really wish I would have thought of it sooner. Tomorrow on FLURRY Sports, I'll publish our consistency and boom bust rankings for the first half of the year. I'm going to bust my ass and get that all done tonight. I think that's good for in terms of possibly trading for players. You can see who's consistent, who is truly like Jaden Reed ranks still pretty high overall for fantasy football in terms of the year-long rankings, but he's been terrible for at least half of the weeks. Not really a player you want to have on your team because he's going to lose you just as many weeks as he's going to win you. That's not great. So I'll have those out tomorrow. We'll for sure have an article about it. The actual data itself may be behind a paywall. We will see. We'll see. We'll see how cutesy I'm feeling tomorrow. Trevor Land in the middle, Luke Reimer on the right. I am Zach Bruner, here to answer your fantasy football questions. That takes precedence over the rankings. But let's jump into the rankings before questions come in. Quarterback rankings for the week. These ones seemed kind of straightforward to me, but I do think there's a lot of good quarterback weeks. I have Jalen Hurts number 1 versus the Cowboys. Feels like he's going to torch the Cowboys.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson 2 versus the Bengals. On Thursday, we got Josh Allen 3 at Indy, Brock Purdy 4 at Tampa, and then Joe Burrow on Thursday 5 at the Ravens. I also really like Sam Darnold at the Jags, and I have Jaden Daniels at 7. I'm not a fan of Jaden Daniels this week in terms of Jaden Daniels. Normally, I think the Steelers are legit, and they just got another pass rusher, so I'm kind of afraid of them. But Trevor, what do you think of those 5 plus quarterbacks?
It's the top 3 and everybody else, as I'm pretty sure we said last week. But I like where Jaden Daniels is, right? Like week to week, he's an absolute stud. We know what he is. But against Pittsburgh, that's going to be a really, really tough matchup for him. Personally, I think if he looks good in that game, just give him the Rookie of the Year already. And if he looks really good in that game, Lamar should probably still win the MVP. But, now he's got some real competition. But for fantasy purposes, if you have him, you're starting him. But you definitely should be lowering your expectations going into the week and hoping that one of your skill position players can pick up the slack, because TJ Watt is coming and he does not care who you are. He's bringing you down at least twice a game.
Yeah, the right out of the top 5 there, the notable name in there, right, is Brock Purdy. I assume it has something to do with maybe some Christian McCaffrey going on this week. San Francisco's kind of getting healthy back, right? Other than Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle's been playing well. Ricky Pearsall's awesome, and Debo. Yeah, like I'm in for Brock Purdy having a big week. He's got a great matchup. So yeah, cool, awesome.
Yeah, Tampa's been bad. Purdy's coming off a bye. In his last 3 games, anyways, 6, 8, and 4 for quarterback finishes. So
Yeah,
he feels like he's just as safe, I feel like, as the top 3 guys. He doesn't have the ceiling, but I feel like he's not going to let you down whatsoever.
I feel like too with Brock Purdy, if you drafted Brock Purdy, at least for me, and maybe I don't know if this is consistent with anyone else, but I have him as a bench quarterback in one of my leagues that I might be trying to ship off right now before the trade deadline here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real chance you got, I suppose, Jane Daniels and Brock Purdy or something like that. If you're presented with that situation, who do you trade? In my opinion, it's you trade who you get the most for, which is probably Jane Daniels. But
For
what's your
sure.
thoughts with that?
Yeah, and not to switch the players, but I'm in a situation where I have Josh Allen and Brock Purdy.
Okay, yeah. I don't think. I mean, what's the average difference between their points on a week-to-week basis? Like maybe
Maybe 5.
5 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you probably could get a very solid starter at a different position straight up for Josh Allen, much less if you package them.
Right. So I think it's an interesting conversation to have for anyone who has Brock Purdy right now.
Yeah, especially for Daniels, right? Like, you can never predict injuries, but he does run a lot more. He does throw himself into positions where he can get hurt, not as much as he did in college, but like that risk though is going to be there. So his price is probably as high as it's going to get right now.
Yeah, and I don't hate. I mean, Tampa this week, Seattle, Green Bay. Don't hate that. He's got Buffalo after that, and people are talking about Buffalo like they're scary, and I just don't really understand that. Then Chicago, who I think secondary is legit, but then he ends the year. So the fantasy playoffs is the Rams, the Dolphins, and then the Lions, who I personally think can get got through the air. Like I think they're good, but like their overall like ranking against fantasy quarterbacks, people are saying it's just because they blow people out, so it's a lot of prevent defense and stuff. I don't think so. Like I think they can get got a little bit if the
Yeah, I mean,
home, and it might not against San Francisco's O line.
yeah, like last week, Jordan Love was like 5 drops away from a good fantasy day against the Lions.
Yeah, very fair. St. Louis fans, welcome back. Didn't forget about you here. So I'm assuming this is Dynasty. Would you trade Drake May for Isaiah Pacheco, Trey Benson, a mid 2026 first, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Travis? This is very interesting. Super flex. My other quarterback is Caleb Williams, Tua, and Jameis. So he does already have a young, good rookie.
Yeah.
But then Tua and Winston are the other 2 in a super flex, though.
So you trade Drake May. Really, right? The prize pick out of this, at least to me, is that mid first round pick. What do you do with that? Is the whole question here, because I love this trade. If you can use that mid first round to instantly help your team next year.
I don't even. I get that thought process. I don't even think it matters. The way that I look at it is, can you replace Drake May by the time Aaron Rodgers is gone? For me, you have Aaron Rodgers the rest of this year, so the question is 2025. So to lose Drake May for 2025, you get Pacheco, Benson, and a mid first. And to your point, you can always trade that mid first for a first this year. You can always trade that first for 2027 first. Like mid first have so much value. I'm absolutely taking that, because worst case scenario, you're in a place where you're hoping Tua doesn't get hurt next year. And that's not great, but Tua is going to play if he can get on the field. So I'm not too worried about like him sitting the majority of the year unless he gets concussed again.
Yeah, Trevor, to your point there about replacing Aaron Rodgers, like you don't have a ton, but you have a little flexibility with 2 starting quarterbacks in Caleb Williams and Tua to kind of work around with this pick, right?
The big red flag that popped out to me, and we can't answer this unless he gives us that info. Like you're getting a lot of players, which probably means you have to drop a lot of players. Like I'm just thinking about my teams. Like I don't want to be dropping 4 guys. That feels bad. But in a vacuum, I love the trade.
Yeah.
Pacheco's young and he's a starting running back. I think Trey Benson's the future starter for the Cardinals, and I think he's good. Mid first, obviously, you're going to get a good running back next year, running back heavy draft. You could get, if you like Shadur on the Raiders, that's where he's going. So, like, according to him, so he might be in that mid. He's in a rebuild, so he can afford to drop. That's great.
Slam, yes.
I almost
So-
like I would do it depending on who you have to drop. I'm almost looking immediately, especially if he puts on another good week. I'm almost immediately trading Aaron Rodgers if
Yep.
you're rebuilding.
Oh, so I'm going to add one more layer to this because I agree with you on that. Is if you do this trade, I'm looking to flip Pacheco right away then too.
Probably, yeah. I don't hate that trading running backs in a rebuilding season. Don't hate that. Probably need him to come back before. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Like a team
Or-
who's fighting for the fantasy playoffs, if they have a
or
weak running back situation, he should be back
even-
for that.
Yeah, even when Pacheco comes back and Kansas City makes a run in the playoffs, people are going to love, the Pacheco usage in the playoffs. You can trade him in the offseason.
I'm just almost thinking people are going to be. There's two people, I suppose. There's people who are nervous that it's going to be a 50-50 split with Kareem Hunt. And there's people who think Pacheco's going to run away with it right away again. And so there's
kinda
some people
somewhere in
who
the middle
probably, I am too, but there's going to be some people who really don't value Pacheco very high. But there's going to be people who think of him as that same player still.
And in the worst case scenario, you trade Pacheco during the draft because the draft is when everybody's values go pretty high. And the best thing about those first round picks is you don't have to panic with them, right? Like if Mike Evans gets hurt, like I have him right now, like there's not much you can do with them. But those first round picks, you can stack them. Like I said, you can trade them earlier, trade them later if you don't need them. First round picks are so valuable. I
Yeah,
love
I mean,
that.
on top of that, everyone wants a first round pick when the draft is going on.
True. I really like this draft class. I think it's a
Yeah.
running back heavy draft class. I think there's top end wide receiver talent. I don't know about depth, but that doesn't really matter. And then, like I said, like because of those two things, there's a real chance you get Shadur and a super flex in the mid first, or
Yep.
like a player like that. Like there's going to be some good quarterbacks, and clearly some quarterback situations where teams need to figure it out. You still have the Giants, you have the Raiders. There's going to be some older quarterback teams that are looking to get ahead of it as well. If you can play the waiting game, like there's interesting situations in landing spots for quarterbacks right now as well.
And
Maybe the Cowboys, not the Cowboys. They just signed them. Never mind.
I guarantee you there's somebody, and I don't mean this to bash you, Luke. There's somebody like Luke in your league that loves Shador and will
Yeah,
trade
for
you
sure.
an established quarterback for Shador.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, he's exciting. Why wouldn't you?
Mhm.
Like for better or worse, he's going to be fun to root for. Okay. Other quarterbacks this week. I'm guessing I'm lower on Jared Goff than normal. He plays the Texans. I have him at 12. Texans defense is legit. Jared Goff's
Yeah.
been bad the last 2 weeks because the Lions have dominated so easily. Like that's the only reason why he hasn't been good for fantasy. But I think the Texans defense, especially their secondary, is legit. I believe they allow the lowest passing completion rate in the league, one of the lowest yards per passing attempt as well. They're really solid. They're going to get pressure. And Jared Goff, I don't think is like we know what Jared Goff is under pressure. And I think Houston can get pressure on him. So don't
Agreed.
love him this week. Other quarterbacks. Flacco
And-
last week made me so sad.
I'm sorry. To your point about Houston, with a good pass rush and playing well against pass, I think he can run a little bit against Houston as well. Like look at what, and I know it was on a wet field, but Detroit, David Montgomery had 8 carries on their first drive last week. Like Detroit's whole
Yeah.
game plan is establishing that run early. If they get that going against Houston, I love it.
Yeah, fully agree with that. Joe Flacco, I think like I have zero confidence in him moving forward. Caleb Williams, I'm not necessarily starting this week. We got Giants and the Panthers overseas in the Snooze Bowl.
If you have to, I don't hate Daniel Jones.
I don't hate him. There's a real chance Drew Lock plays though. in this
I feel
game.
like I kind of feel like this is the last dance for Daniel Jones.
It is like back against the wall. Either he's going to play well or
Yeah.
it's Drew Lock.
Right.
Like, again, I can't stress this enough. I don't think he's been given a fair shake, but At this point, it is what it is. I don't know. He's going to be a very interesting backup quarterback somewhere
Yeah,
next
yeah.
year
It'd
or
be
2
like
years.
um, the Pittsburgh Kenny Pickett, like that kind of situation.
Send him to
Geno.
Cleveland.
I mean, legitimately, that could be it.
What?
It's like what's his face from Mac Jones
Yeah.
backing up Trevor Lawrence now. It's just weird.
What do you guys think about Tua this week? He's not owned in a ton of leagues. And I'm assuming
No.
that's just coming off from just injury and people dropping him. I mean, don't look now, but Miami's their weapons are starting to get healthy here.
I have him at 9. Yeah, he
Yeah.
plays especially like if you're picking him up for the long term, he has the Rams, the Raiders, the Patriots, the Packers. He has the Jets after that, which I don't love. But those 4 games, I mean, fire him up. I'm
Yeah.
not afraid at all.
Yeah.
Rams, especially this week. Like, I don't trust the Rams to put a ton of pressure on them.
No, and you pick them up and play too. You get that Monday night bump where you can kind of feel out the game and then just see how much you need from a quarterback to win.
Yeah. Yeah. Tyreek Hill, we'll get to in a little bit. What a nightmare to rank. Like,
Yeah, I can imagine.
Range of outcomes is literally anything at this
It's
point. We've seen everything.
196.
Yeah. I think I have him at 7, and I'm afraid I'm too low. But I mean, he hasn't finished above 30, I think, in
Since
over a
week
month.
1.
Yeah, maybe. It's not great. Other quarterbacks. So I'm higher on Tua, actually. Consensus has him at 12, and I have him at 9. I'm a believer. I like him.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm higher on Aaron Rodgers. I have him at 10. That's 4 spots higher. I've seen everything I need from Rodgers. Like, I'm fully back on board the Jets. I'm fully on board this passing attack. I think they figured it out. I don't think their offensive line is nearly as bad as people are saying. And I think he's going to start carving up people. He plays the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Why are we acting like it's anything other than a layup this week?
Yeah.
When it comes to Aaron Rodgers, just wait. Just wait. The moment people started talking about it and I saw the tweets in the first half, just wait. Him and Adams got on the same page, and we have seen that how many times over the years. Adams beats him off the line, and it's just too easy. And now he's got Garrett Wilson, and Garrett Wilson is a stud.
I mean, on our Packers show, Lombardi Sweep, when we played the Cardinals, I said, you can pick which wide receiver you want to be the leading receiver because their secondary is that bad and they don't have a pass rush. I believe they traded for somebody for a pass rush, but it wasn't a big deal. They still don't really have a pass rush. Their secondary is trash other than Budda Baker. So, I don't know. Rodgers could go bananas in this game. Absolutely crazy. And I'm not afraid of the Cardinals offense either.
Nope.
Like, this is a layup for the Jets. I said a couple weeks ago, I don't think there's a real chance the Jets are not odds underdogs in any game the rest of the season. They immediately lost to the Patriots, but then they were favored against the Texans. That still may be true.
Yeah.
Like, they may not be underdogs in any game the rest of this year. It's insane. Okay. Other quarterbacks. So I'm higher on Rodgers. I'm currently higher on Stroud. When I did the rankings, I was under the impression Nico Collins was going to go. It sounds like he's for sure out this week. So I am at 15. Consensus has him at 18, and I'm going to be around there or lower on CJ Stroud. I want nothing to do with him. Yeah.
I agree. And not to switch off quarterbacks, but just to talk about Nico Collins for a second, because this can kind of tie in. Okay, so we had the conversation about like if you have a Jaden Daniels and a Brock Purdy, would you trade one of those guys for Nico Collins?
Yeah, as long as you're in a good position where it's like you need a receiver for the rest of the year and you don't need a win this week or even next week. Like, I love that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have the trade value article on Flurry Sports usually Fridays now. So on Friday, and I only assume Nico Collins is going to be like quite a bit higher in terms of who I value more than those quarterbacks. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, everyone listening and watching, go check out that article because we're getting close to trade deadlines in a lot of leagues here.
Yeah. So week 9s is up. Obviously, still Friday, weeks 10s will be up. I'm tweaking the actual values as we go. Just it's weird because it's hard to value quarterbacks versus the flex receivers just because I know how I value them. Like the casual fantasy fan values quarterbacks drastically different than other positions, drastically different than like the more experienced players, and yada yada yada. Like quarterbacks are valued so differently depending on the person, so differently depending on the scoring settings, so differently depending on everything. So little weird to grade quarterbacks, but I feel like running backs versus wide receivers, tight ends is good. In Merrimack, what is up? Thank you for joining. What's the best streaming quarterback this week? Highest realistic ceiling. I'm concerned that Cousins won't be throwing the ball as much, just how easy it is to run on the Saints and how bad the Saints have been. I'll use that to say I'm 3 spots lower than the consensus on Kirk Cousins. So I'm fully with you. I have Kirk Cousins at 11. The consensus has him as a top 10 guy. So take for that whatever you want. But I am fully in line with your exact thinking. So Luke wrote the best streaming quarterbacks article on Flurry Sports. Who is your number one best streaming option with a realistic ceiling, you think?
The number one that I had that I kind of, now that we talked it out, I kind of want to, if I could rewrite it, I would. I had Daniel Jones, but like it's Tua. It's Tua this week. Like I said, I love all the weapons are healthy. Jonnu Smith is playing like a stud right now. Devon Achane's playing like a stud in the pass game. Raheem Mostert's still running well. Tyreek Hill still exists, and Jalen Waddle still exists against, not a very scary Rams defense. Like, load Tua up this week, man.
To your point, just on ESPN currently, he's rostered in 44.5% of leagues, which it really is crazy. Like, that doesn't make sense to me as a Tua hater, then lover, then hater again. I've run the course on Tua, and even I would own Tua. Like, I don't understand. Like, he was dropped because of the injuries and shit and looked like he would never come back again. But
he's back.
He's back, and he hasn't been great yet, but you can just tell it's right there.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the fumbles in the first week, he would have been fine. Tyreek Hill's been banged up. I think he's going to be okay. Like, I'm not nervous. So, yeah, that would be my number one. I like
also
Daniel Jones. I don't hate that, but
I also threw Russell Wilson in for the matchup this week.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I have Russell Wilson at 21. He plays Washington. Like, he feels like a high floor, low ceiling guy to me, which isn't, depending on your situation, that's whatever.
Yeah, and not a bash on Justin Fields here at all or anything, but with Russell Wilson, they turn into more of a dual threat offense, right? You kind of have to respect the pass and the run, which makes me like the pass a little bit more if they can really get that run game going.
Yeah, I fully agree. Defenses actually have to respect stuff. Am I crazy? Eagles are playing good defense now. I think they are fully adapting to the Vic Fangio scheme. I'm not completely against Cooper Rush as long as CeeDee Lamb plays. If CeeDee Lamb's out, whatever. But
Cooper Rush hasn't been bad. Like, and obviously, I think this was 2 years ago. He looked pretty solid against a Minnesota team that was not bad. Like, he has some good flashes. I think he's up there as one of the better backup quarterbacks. They're going to need to pass the ball. So do I feel super confident that Philly's going to sack him and get a ton of interceptions? Not enough for him not to still be able to contribute.
it just feels like a weird game where the Cowboys are like, I think this is going to be a close game no matter what. I think Cowboys could pull off an upset. I really do. And it goes against everything on paper, but I don't know. It's in Dallas too, I believe.
They haven't won there yet this year.
In Dallas. That is true. That is true. But maybe Cooper Rush is the guy to do it. Also, just read a headline looking for the ESPN ownership. Dak tore his hamstring off the bone.
Ouch.
Which is a great imagery. So I'm guessing he's done for the season. But he's getting second opinions, I guess. Not sure if you need a second opinion on that specifically, but is what it is. Picked up the Falcons defense again because of how bad the Saints are. Fully on board with that.
Yep.
Saints are going to start. I mean, the team was quitting on Dennis Allen. This is the rebound week. You know, they usually get a bump with the fired coach. So I'm a little nervous about that. But I'm kind of thinking they almost view Derek Carr as the head coach. So I think this whole team's turning on Derek Carr, but that's just me. Any better streaming defense option, though? I don't have the ownerships ahead of me, but let's see where the Falcons are for me. I have Atlanta at 10. I think, okay, so the Giants I have at 7. I'm assuming they're very low. They play overseas against the Panthers, who I'm not afraid of. So
Yeah,
I don't hate the Giants.
the Giants still have an awesome front seven. Like at least they were 2 weeks ago, were leading the NFL in sacks, which I don't think anyone's
Crazy.
talking about at all. But I mean, if you get points for sacks are big, because turnovers are hard to come by. So yeah, I'm with the Giants here, especially against Bryce Young, man, in Germany. Like that's not a great recipe for Carolina here.
They're so bad.
Yeah.
Trevor, any thoughts?
Yeah, I can't believe they're available in this many leagues. Speaking for myself, the Bears are available in a fair amount of leagues because they're on bye last week. Obviously, Jaquan Brisker, still looks like he's going to be out. I still want to go away from that. That's insane that it's been 31 days in concussion protocol. Something's going on there. But even then, he's playing New England. They'll be just fine with that. They're going to be swarming. They're going to hit him a ton. They're probably going to get at least 2-3 turnovers. So that's a good option as well. That for some reason people aren't stashing them. I think this is the last week because I think once divisional play starts, it's going to get a little dicey.
It looks like in ESPN is kind of different than everybody else, but most people play there. So that's why I'm just using their ownership. The Bears are actually owned in 60.5% over there, which is pretty high. But again, a lot of people dropped them because they're bye. So check them out. They play New England. Giants are owned in under 25%, 23.6. Other decent one. Titans play the Chargers. I really honestly don't hate that. They're owned in 19%. And I don't hate the reverse of that Germany game. I think they're in Germany. Playing the Panthers defense against the Giants, you would have to be super desperate, and you're not. I'm just saying this for somebody else. But they're owned in 1%. I don't hate playing the Panthers against the Giants. Would it be crazy to see Daniel Jones fumble it 5 times overseas? Not at all.
Nope.
like you could do worse. Giants could also spank the Panthers, though. I think that's something, at least for a DFS perspective, maybe to think about. That's a fun game to stack, maybe. Mondo, pick one: Mason, Brooks, or Braylon Allen. I think we rule out Mason right away.
Yeah.
Assuming McCaffrey's back.
Yeah. And in his next post here, he said he's down bad at running back. I hate all these, but probably Jonathan Brooks. I mean, right? Yeah, you roll Mason if McCaffrey's playing. Braylon Allen, you're relying on a touchdown and really not getting anything else. So I think Jonathan Brooks probably has, I don't even know, the most guaranteed carries here.
He's so tough. Like, they've been so fucking cautious with him. That's the whole thing. Like, we will get some sort of news on a snap count for him, I think. Just because there's absolutely nothing else to talk about in Carolina. I feel like reporters have to ask that, and they have to answer that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially with Chuba's like more than serviceable this year and last.
Sure.
So I mean, they don't need to. I mean, why would you not play him? But point still stands.
I mean, truly though, who cares? Like it's not like they want to win games. Let's protect the future. They have no reason to play him. I thought there was a realistic chance he didn't play this season at all, actually. I want to really quick look at. Okay. So the Jets, Braylon Allen played 17 of 58 snaps last week. He's been kind of inconsistent in terms of how much he's playing. Rodgers likes him. I think I would go Brooks, but a gambler, like he clearly has the highest ceiling, right? Like he could go bananas if he gets even a 50% workload. So I think that's fun, and it's in a primetime Sunday morning slate. I think the safest one's Allen, though.
Yeah, I think so too. And this has nothing to do, and you probably shouldn't base your decision off of this. But if I'm getting up at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday to cheer for Jonathan Brooks and he does nothing, I am going to be so fucking pissed.
That's fair. That sets the tempo for the rest of the day for sure. Banderson, am I crazy? But I'm not sure what the heck. I mean, we are, yeah. What's off with Tyreek actually considering playing Najee over him? Is it a overreaction? It's not, because Najee Harris has such a good matchup.
Yeah.
Playing Washington. Like, I think Najee's gone over 100 yards, I believe, in 3 straight games. I think he makes it 4.
Yep.
No doubt he's safer, right?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. But I'm going to say the same thing I've said all year. I'm not going to be the guy to sit Tyreek Hill when he goes for 202 touchdowns.
Yeah. It fully has to be try to project your matchup yourself. Like, if you just need 12 points, like, you just don't want them to screw you and you'll probably win, I would go with Najee. But if you think you're going to need a big performance, no doubt Tyreek could go for fucking 202 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's an East Coast game, so I'm sure it's at noon. But Pittsburgh, Washington, when is that game?
It is noon.
Fuck, okay. So that makes it harder to judge if you can wait another Monday. Right. All right, never mind then.
You're for sure not crazy though. Like, that's a legitimate question. I mean, Trevor, I think you're on board with this. I know Luke and I are very much like start your studs. I assume you are too.
I usually am. I think it depends what your matchup's looking like. Like, if you're in a league where it's close, or where you're behind by, more than 1 or 2 points, I think you start Tyreek Hill. I think if it's something where, you're in a dynasty league, you're up 20, you're up 15 projected, I think you go Najee. Just, protect yourself, because if Tyreek Hill goes off and you lose, it's going to be like, well, who could have predicted that? But if you start Tyreek, he puts up a dud and you blow a lead because of that, that's going to hurt you a lot coming on a Monday night.
That is fair. Dylan, would you do Cup for Metcalf and Tyrone Tracy? Very injury riddled. His running backs are Saquon, Kareem, Mostert. Bucky receivers are Brian Thomas, Waddle, and Deontay.
I don't think I would do this. I think his running backs are fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so either. It sounds like you got at least 3 or 4 more weeks of Kareem Hunt, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I'm sticking with this. Like, if you trade your receivers are now Metcalf, Brian Thomas Jr., both are, week to week, what do you get out of them? And then Waddle and Deontay, like, I'm not super stoked about that.
Can you pull that back up, Zach?
Yeah.
So let's say you don't do this trade. You go in with your quarterback, Saquon, Kareem, Hunt. Probably Cooper Kupp is going to be your wide receiver 1. Brian Thomas is going to be wide receiver 2. And you have a choice between Waddle, Mostert, and Deontay Johnson. Yeah, I love that for a lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I'm okay with searching for a trade given that's your team, but I don't love trading away Cup right now.
If you're looking for a running back for Cup, I think you can do a little bit better than Tyrone Tracy. Not that he's been bad or not playing bad or anything, but just for more of a consistent workload.
I agree. Running backs. Number 1 this week, I have Saquon at Dallas. Number 2, I have Derrick Henry versus the Bengals. Devon Achane 3 at the Rams. Kyren Williams 4 versus the Dolphins. Then I have Bijan 5 at New Orleans. Talked about Bijan last week, how he just doesn't finish very high. And if there was no scenario for him to be the number 1 running back, even though a lot of people had him as that. And then Algier scored a touchdown. Like, it's kind of a similar thing this week. Consensus has him at 3. I am at 5. He plays the Saints, who you can run against, and I still don't love him. Like, that timeshare it hurts. It hurts him. I think it's correct. I think it's the right coaching call. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Luke, what do you think about those running backs?
Yeah, the top 2, you guys know my thoughts on both of them. Also, like, Saquon reverse hurdle, that was like the coolest thing I've ever seen. One of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Insane.
Yeah, I don't even out of a spin move. I don't even know how you think to attempt that and how he didn't get just absolutely destroyed, injured. Like, that's the shit I try to do when we play college football.
I mean, he dead-legged, juked, spin, then did that.
Yeah, it was nuts.
I saw somebody tweet out that when it was a view of their sideline, it said when you can make some of the best athletes in the world react like this to your play, it's special. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's like, holy shit, what did we just see? I mean, everybody wants to talk about Jordan's switch hand layup. Whatever that was from Barkley is a
Yeah.
million times better than that. It's not even close.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'll say the obvious concern there, right, with putting Saquon Barkley at 1 is the Jalen Hurts vulture touchdowns. But even still, like
For
last 2 weeks ago, Jalen Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns, and Saquon still had 11 points rushing just off of rushing yards. Like they're running the ball, they're going to run the ball. I don't know AJ Brown's status, but with him banged up a little bit, it kind of gives him a little bit more incentive to run the ball. So yeah, I'm cool.
Someone asked on the Start Sit show with Henry and McAdoo last week, like, why are we still putting Saquon Barkley at number 1? Like, he just gets his touchdowns vultured. He did finish number 1 last week, by the way. Shout out to me.
Mhm.
But still, like, I get that. But rankings is like, what's the most expected outcome? What's the most likely outcome? Like, yes, he absolutely could get vultured. If he gets tackled at the 1 yard line, which happens way too often, then it probably
Yeah.
should. But like, if we're projecting the most likely outcome for all of the running backs, other than Derrick Henry, I don't know if anybody comes close.
No, it's Derrick Henry and Saquon. Trevor, me and you've been saying it all year, and Zach to you. It's those two and then the rest.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, like Saquon's not just catching touchdowns. I think last week was at least the second week that I've seen that he caught like a 20-yard wheel route. That was
Mhm.
just beautifully thrown right there. So like, it's not like, oh, he caught a check down at the 10 and just ran in. Like to your point, he might get vultured, but he's an absolute stud, especially in PPR. I mean, there's a reason he was unstoppable with the Giants in terms of fantasy.
And I mean, we've seen the Cowboys get embarrassed by running backs in their own house before. Like, it feels like a 3 touchdown game from him. It really does. I'm for sure betting the 2 touchdown line for Saquon this week. It feels right.
Let's answer this.
Okay. Merrimack asks, pretty sure we're Packer fans. Yeah, painfully. But I'm 2-6. I have traded Jacobs and Reed for Connor and Hopkins. Rate the trade. I'm not high on the 2 guys you traded, but I still don't like the trade, I don't think. I like Hopkins. I think Hopkins is better than Reed rest of season. I think I like Jacobs more than Connor, though.
Yeah.
I don't hate this trade.
I don't
but
hate it either.
As 2-6, I don't necessarily know that this is going to propel you to the playoffs. Like it's all going to come down to DeAndre Hopkins, right? Because to a degree, you can kind of compare Josh Jacobs and James Conner and kind of put him in that same tier, I guess. But you're going to need like games like we saw Monday night from DeAndre Hopkins to really make a push for the playoffs with this trade.
I like this trade. I don't think you're getting the best side of the trade, but it's a bye week for the Packers. You already have 6 losses. If you get 7, your season's probably over. Your season, even if you win out, you're against the grain. So to try to throw one last nail at the board, I mean, it could be worse.
That is very, very true. Definitely helps this week in a must-win week. I also don't hate getting off of offenses that are like there's going to be very, very rare weeks where both Jacobs and Reed are both great. It feels like they're very negatively correlated.
Yeah.
I don't have the math on that.
Which is odd.
Yeah.
For how they play.
I fully agree. But yeah, it feels like either Jacobs is helping the Packers like matriculate down the field, keeps moving the chains or whatever, or Packers are on their heels the entire game and Jaden Reed gets a big gain, right, for like 50 yards and a touchdown or something. Like they played so oppositely. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird. But yeah, I like doing it. Rate the trade. In a vacuum, it's about the same. Considering it's a must-win week, I would side with what you got, but you probably could have got more. Probably.
Merrimack man, as an outsider and I assume you're not a Packer fan if you're saying that we are. Tell us what outsiders think of the Packers right now, because I think they're in a really weird spot. Or stay tuned for our next show on Lombardi Sweep and let us know.
Yeah, 10, 15 minutes. We will definitely be talking about that. Packers are a very weird team. Quickly, Christian McCaffrey, I have at 8. If he's playing, you're playing him.
Yeah,
Don't
correct.
even give a
This
second
is why
thought.
this is why you held on to him.
Yeah, you've waited too long. You deserve this. You've earned this. Do it. And if he kills you, start calling him a neo-Nazi or something, because
Right.
pretty easy connection to make. Other running backs, I'm high on Ramondre Stevenson. I have him at 17. That's 6 spots higher. I like his matchup. 7 spots higher in Jonathan Brooks. So we talked about him. Consensus has him at 48. I have him at 41. So it's not like I love him, but I think you can get away with using him as a flex this week if you need to.
I will say it kind of feels like a game where this game really has no implications because both these teams kind of suck, right? It's over in Germany. Nobody really gives a fuck. Like, let's see what the young guy's got, and maybe he throws in 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
It's possible. If you want to win over fans, do something worthwhile,
Yeah.
I think the most guaranteed thing to come out of this game is they pan to the crowd in a garbage game and there's a giant beer snake going on and they're singing chanted songs. Like, I think that's only guaranteed in this game. This game can go any which way and nobody's going to care.
I just brought up Jonathan Brooks's Wikipedia page. Is there any connection to him in Germany, do we think?
No chance.
He's got such a short Wikipedia page. Not to,
He hasn't done anything.
I guess. I don't know. I thought he did something. There's nothing. Huh. Well, I guess, yeah, that sucks. Okay.
There's an
whatever.
incentive to play well. Get your Wikipedia page bigger.
No kidding. Sell some jerseys in Germany because Panthers fans aren't buying jerseys. No shot. Packers are awesome. Reed's super volatile. Agree with Jacobs over Connor. Should be targeting Reed more. End of story. He's their best pass catcher by a lot. Yes and no. Prior to last week, I don't have the updated stats. 8 yards this entire season against man coverage. 2 reasons for that. One, he can't really beat man coverage. So the window to throw to is small. And then part 2, the window to throw to is small and Jordan Love can't hit the broadside of a barn. So he should be targeted a lot. Aaron Rodgers would be destroying with him over the middle, I think. But I've for my money, I think Romeo Doubs is a better all-around receiver right now. For me. Personally.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree on that. I agree.
Better overall player, Reed, probably. Okay. Running back. Any other running backs we want to talk about?
I just really quick, I'm going to say I think Joe Mixon does well. He's at 7. I have him
Yeah.
in the top 5. I was not at all impressed with this Lions run defense. The Packers have a solid run offense, but like Packers got whatever the hell they wanted. I understand it was kind of a nasty game, but if that's anything close to the case with Houston and they can stop the Lions a little bit, Joe Mixon's going to run for 110 easy.
Yeah, if you go to flurrysports.org, I have the positional rankings up and I have little insights about certain players. Joe Mixon's one of them I wrote about, the first one actually, on the running backs one. I said he might be the most trustworthy running back in fantasy football. He's rushed for 100 yards and a touchdown in every single game that he's played in and completed this year. So all 5 of those games. And then the Lions, to your point, they have allowed the most yards per carry over the previous 3 games. Almost 6 yards per carry, which is crazy. So yeah, he could absolutely eat. Only worry is that there's zero threat of a passing game. That's it. And it's possible. We shall see. Chase Brown versus the Ravens.
Oh,
Obviously, Ravens run
Interesting.
defense. Legit. I have him at 21, and I might move him a little lower. He's a good receiver, though. I think 5 catches last week. So I think he's involved. Khalil Herbert got brought in. I think he plays Thursday. Zach Moss probably out for the year. Very Zach Moss move. I think Khalil Herbert's going to be pretty involved in this offense. Probably not this week, but eventually. I like him quite a bit. What's your guys' thoughts on him?
yeah. I mean, if you have Chase Brown, well, I guess with injuries, I'm in a league where 2 flexes. I have Chase Brown as one of the flex, and I'm keeping him and just riding him until I can't anymore. Like he's a run game for this Bengals offense that kind of feels like it needs to be kind of set in stone. Like I'm a Joe Burrow guy. It feels like a hard kind of go if the Bengals have to rely on their pass game to make it to the playoffs because they are in total backup against the wall. And if that's the case too, to your point, Zach, like Chase Brown is so involved in this pass game. Yeah, I think Chase Brown's fine. I think he's probably a weekly starter the rest of the season.
I'm personally not a huge fan of Chase Brown. Nothing fantasy related. Just do not like him as a player. I don't know what it is. He's a solid player. I can't
He's not
deny that.
exciting, Trevor.
I
He's not exciting.
He's not. No.
I just look at him and I'm like, eh. Like I've
Yeah.
never wanted to draft him in fantasy in my entire life. But he's a solid option. So I can't bash the guy too much.
I look at him and I feel like he should be more Rex Burkhead like.
Yeah.
I miss Rex Burkhead. I miss how he fell onto my fantasy team every year at one point, and I never remember when he got there. It was some 5 a.m. in a haze waiver claim or something. But he's always there. And damn, I started him every year. There's always a week, and I miss that. So Rex Burkhead, if you want to come back, I would love that.
I mean,
I'm gonna look it up.
To your point, Trevor, about just being meh for Chase Brown, like out of the 11 guys on the offensive lineman included, Chase Brown might be like the 10th most exciting guy in this offense.
I agree. Rex Burkhead has a cameo. Any guesses on how much he charges for that?
$50.
Never mind. He got rid of it. It's still linked in his.
I was gonna say $65.
Yeah, it's probably too much. He's active on Twitter. Okay, he liked the Saquon Barkley play. Creativity unreal, he said. He should go out there and mimic it. I'd like to see him redo it. That would be good content.
Apparently his cost is $50. Shout out Rex
Is it 50?
Burkhead.
Good for him. Okay, so for receivers, what I'm going to do is just say some players I'm very different on the consensus. Then you can go to flurrysports.org to see the full rankings. I'm 5 higher on CD Lamb. I ranked him as if he plays. He'd probably go a little higher if he plays. I am at 16. Consensus is 21. I have Jordan Addison at 25. That's 4 spots higher. I don't know why people are that low on him. He complained and started to get the ball more, and I think that continues. I am 5 spots lower on Deebo Samuel at 13. With McCaffrey back, Deebo kind of just becomes another guy to me. I think he's a good play, but I don't think he's a top 10 play. I'm 6 spots lower on Marvin Harrison Jr. at 31. Against the Jets, I don't know how anyone could say he's a top 25 play. He's going to suck.
Just agreed 100%. Is Marvin Harrison the worst first-round pick in fantasy in the last decade?
I saw someone tweet that out. Do you mean dynasty?
Injuries aside. No, redraft. Injuries aside.
Did people actually draft him near there? I saw someone ask the same question.
His ADP
Sadly,
is like 12,
they did.
13.
Insane that anybody did that.
I guess then, yeah. Because like McCaffrey, you can't blame this.
Right.
Like injuries are injuries. Yeah. I saw multiple people say the exact same thing as you, Luke, like asking on Twitter. And I thought it was dynasty and I thought it was ridiculous. Like, what do you guys are overreacting to 1 year?
Redraft. He was 12. He was like 12 to 15 ADP in redraft.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. Like he was going ahead of Derrick Henry.
Yeah. I mean, everyone was too low on Derrick Henry except for us, seemingly. We're just like, why is he going this low? It does not make sense.
Just fucking Hall of Famer on the best run offense like ever. Yeah,
it's one of those things where like, what are we missing? Like, is he going to split time? What are we doing here? Yeah, that's weird.
If I may, can we remove a nickname from a past team? Because I was thinking about this. We can't call the Rams the greatest show on turf. Not like the Ravens are so much more interesting than them, aren't they?
I think they lost their privileges when they lost the Raiders. You can't do that.
That's a fair point.
How did that happen?
Insane.
I think the issue is that nobody plays on turf anymore.
I would argue too many people play on turf.
Fair.
So with David Bakhtiari, it sounds like. Is he going to come back to play? He's got a very limited number of teams he can go to. Because if he plays on turf, he's such a hypocrite.
He looks just fine tweeting about politics, so I don't think he's coming back, which is fair. Keep your money and just...
David Bakhtiari is one of my favorite football players of all time. if I'm him, I'm not playing one more snap of football, man. You're already one of the best tackles ever. You got nothing left to prove. Like, you're fine.
I agree. What a shitty way to go out, though.
Yeah, shit happens,
And a
man.
practice. Ugh.
Do not like it. Okay. Anybody else worth talking about? Nah. Okay. Tight ends.
I have a thing. I have one receiver.
Okay.
Similar to that of Jonathan Brooks. I think I love Malik Neighbors this week.
He just needs to start the game fast.
Yeah.
Like, he's fine in the second half, where I can only assume he is screaming in the face of Daniel Jones to give him the ball and Dayball. Because, like, what happened to the start of the year where he got 20 targets a game? Just do that again. It works. No Slayton, I think, helps him, though, because I think Slayton is legit good. Like, I think he's a very good player. So I think the lack of other good players helps Neighbors in the matchup, obviously. I don't know. I have him at 4, so clearly I like him. But
one more. I'm sorry. One more thing that I missed that I'm gonna miss. Not really fantasy related. With Marshawn Lattimore getting traded, we're not gonna have any more Marshawn Lattimore Mike Evans matchups.
NFL works in weird ways.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee they play next year.
God, I hope so. That's peak cinema football.
It is great every year, and same thing happens every year.
Yeah, it's so fucking funny. Every year, it's so good.
That's the best thing in sports, when it's a yearly thing and the same thing happens every year. It's always the best. They always book it as the opposite's going to happen, and then when the domino falls the same way, it gets a good pop every time.
Yep.
It was kind of like, and Zach, this is a throwback you might not like, but when Pedro Martinez threw down that like 80-year-old coach,
Don Zimmer.
Yeah, and then everybody's like, "Oh, this isn't gonna happen again." He apologized, and I think the next year, like Jason Varitek just shoved Alex Rodriguez in the face.
Yeah.
Sloth Dream King has 2 flex spots looking at the end of his bench: Tolbert, Sutton, or Jennings. I guess I have the rankings up right now. I am 8 spots lower than the consensus on Juwan Jennings, so quite a bit. I'm at 40. Consensus has him at 32. I don't get it. I'm not seeing it.
I said it last week. If everyone's healthy on San Francisco, not to the fault of Juwan Jennings, because he's a great player, there's just not a role for him.
Yeah. Like, he would be better if he got to play slot, but that's not going to happen, I don't think.
Right.
Because Debo's there, and then Pearsall's there.
And Kittle's there, too.
True. Kittle lines up there as well. Yeah, I think I'm sitting him. I don't expect him to do anything. Even with the quarterback change in Dallas, obviously. I think Tolbert and Rush probably have had plenty of time legitimately, like, working out together when Tolbert was the backup, and then they got to do a lot of scout team stuff together, a lot of reps. So actually, with the quarterback change, I'm not sure if there's anyone on the team who benefits more than Tolbert. Ferguson, you could say possibly, but I like it a lot. So I'm sitting Jennings. Luke, were you in the same spot?
Yep.
No?
Yep.
Trevor? Yeah. Interesting choice, though. 3 guys that are, not really doing much.
To that point of Cooper Rush having some chemistry with these backup players, especially with his work in the kick return game, like, I don't hate a Hail Mary touchdown for Kevontae Turpin this week.
Yeah, don't hate it at all. And if CD is out and McCarthy is seemingly coaching for his job, I would just get the ball in the hands of the playmakers, right?
Yeah.
And that's him. That's what I would be doing. They should have been doing that a while ago. Tight ends, I'm 3 spots higher on Cole Kmet at 14. During these past 2 losses, he's just been not involved. And I feel like the Bears are just going to look in the mirror and be like, what's the one thing that has mostly changed? And it's easy layup throws to Cole Kmet. So I think he's going to have a decent game. And then I'm 3 spots lower on Mark Andrews, not ranking him top 10 ever. I am 5 spots lower on Sam Laporte at 17. What have we seen to make him top 12?
Nothing, especially with Jameson Williams coming back.
Yeah.
He's killing me in Dynasty.
Legitimate, like, he's been bad this year. He's just not involved. And it's very bold to put him top 12. It's just name value, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
And then I'm 7 lower on Will Dissly at 29. He just hasn't done anything when Hayden Hurst is active as well. And he's going to play again. That also hurts because he was so good. Okay. Anything else before we do our underdog picks here?
Let's build a parlay.
Okay. So again, underdogfantasy.com, underdog fantasy app, scan the QR code on the screen. Use promo code FLURRY. Important to type that in, FLURRY. You get a $1,000 bonus then. And there's drafts. You can jump into live drafts for individual games for the whole weekend for a bunch of different sports. That is very fun. I always love the drafts, but the pick 'em as well. We'll give you some picks here in a second. Build a parlay, get a big payout. You can now do, I believe it's fully out on iOS, not web or Android yet, but you can do 8 picks without flex. So it's even higher payout. So they just got that. There's also streaks. You can go up to 1,000 or 100 times.
100
times your initial entry. So a lot of good stuff there. Trevor, do you got an underdog pick to get us started here?
I do. Jamar Chase. His receiving yards is at 79.5. Rush plus receiving yards is at 80.5. Seeing he had 11-yard carry against Cleveland 3 weeks ago. I'm going to fire up the 80.5. I'm going to go over. Jamar Chase against Baltimore has been really up and down. The last time they played, he had 193 yards, 12, 31, 86, 50, 125, 201. Those big outliers were when it was kind of sloppy games, close games. Baltimore, in my opinion, is going to run away with this game, so they need to pass. And for a guy who's had 11 targets both the last 2 weeks, I have a hard time believing that's going to be under 81 yards again for a third straight week.
Yeah, even if Cincinnati makes it like a close game, like I talked about it before, I guess the win over the Raiders kind of gives them a tad of flexibility, but not really. Like their backs up against the wall, they got to win this division game to make a run for the playoffs here. So that's going to come by way of Jamar Chase, especially with T Higgins doubtful. Yeah, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, Bengals have screwed themselves not paying T Higgins. Like if he's even a little bit sore, he's going to sit out. That's what's happening here. Again, in the individual positional rankings on Flurry Sports, so for the wide receivers, I did write up Jamar Chase. He's been the wide receiver 1 this season, and in 6 of his 8 games against the Ravens, he scored 6 touchdowns, and he's recorded 7 receptions in 6 of those 8 games. So if you're saying he's going to get 7 receptions against the Ravens, I'm going to guess he gets 80 yards at least. That feels pretty good. Ravens also allow the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. Their secondary, even with Tre'Davious White there now, not very good. They are not playing the pass well whatsoever. Luke, what's your pick?
I'm doing a staple player for the show. I think I've taken him before on this. I'm doing Hunter Henry, 43.5 receiving yards. He's clearly like the number 1 target in New England for Drake May, who's not playing bad football at all. It feels like at this point, Drake May, it's either Ramondre Stevenson / Antonio Gibson, Hunter Henry, or Drake May running the ball. So 43.5, he's gone over it the last 3 games. I think he's a lock for, I think he's at 4.5 receptions. I like even over that. I like a 5 for 50+ game for him this week.
Now, if I may, Luke, is that your lock of the year, or is that not
Not
lock
yet.
of the year?
Lock of the year comes with college basketball. Everyone follow my Twitter. It's coming soon.
It hits every time, so definitely go follow that at Luke Rhyme. Okay, another player in that Thursday night game that I wrote up on the tight ends individual rankings. So Mike Gesicki has been a lock every time T Higgins is out. T Higgins is out again, most likely. Gesicki's not playing tight end for the Bengals this season. I understand he's listed as a tight end. So last week he played 70% of his snaps in the slot, 22% split out wide. He is a wide receiver. He moves all over, but he's mostly in the slot. That's great for getting separation. That's great against this Ravens team as well. He has, so in the 4 games without T Higgins this year, he has 22 receptions, 282 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The other 4 games with T Higgins, just 8 catches and 71 yards. So the difference is quite insane. His receiving yards is set at 51.5. I don't mind that. I like the over on 4.5 receptions, though. which also has a higher multiplier, 1.06. So you get an even higher payout than normal. Don't get lured into the under thinking it's easier because it has an easier payout. 5 receptions should be easy. To your point, I think the Ravens are going to be fine on offense. I think they're going to rack up the score, so the Bengals are going to have to pass. And it's hard to run against the Ravens anyway. So fire up Gesicki, fire up Chase.
And Gesicki was one of my weekly waiver wire pickups for tight ends for that reason. Dude's been a monster lately.
Yeah, I like that he's kind of using he's kind of their intermediate guy, right? That can allow for Jamar Chase to work on screens or allow Jamar Chase for those post routes. So those two kind of work hand in hand, and it's been kind of working this year when Jamar Chase has worked. It kind of feels like Gesicki's also played very well.
Completely agree. So if you put all those together, and I'm just going to throw in higher than 23.5 receiving yards for Chase Brown as well, just because that feels pretty easy. So you put those 3 in plus the Chase Brown, and your payout will be 10.6 times your money. So you put $10 on there and you get 106. Pretty nice, pretty good. And you get $1,000 bonus anyways when you sign up with the promo code FLURRY. So definitely go ahead and do that. Anything else before we get out of here and immediately come back for Lombardi sweep?
Mm-hmm. Let's win some money this week.
Yeah. It's a great week to become a millionaire. I don't know what the Powerball's at, but if you just plug in our place, you're going to get a big payday, and then you can buy a bunch of Powerball tickets.
Can't win if you don't play. So
that's what I tell Lindsay. I tell everybody in my life that, where they say, like, you're throwing away your money. Am I? Okay. I'm going to remember that. That's bulletin board material for my fucking Powerball addiction. Okay.
I'm taking a risk on my future. You're either with me or against me.
Yeah. You know what? Stock market's up, and so is my chances of winning Powerball. Guaranteed. Okay. So we will be back in 10 minutes for mid-season awards for the Packers. These are if Bill Belichick can hand out mid-season awards, so can we. Okay.
Yep.